Hi, I'm Adam Ostogel from Illuminate Education, and we're really looking forward to bringing the Illuminate NextGen Challenge to you and your students soon. Thought I might just give you a bit of an overview of what some of the foundations of the challenge are and how you as a staff group can support the learning environment and make the most out of this opportunity, especially as you will probably be coming and going on when you're off class or otherwise teaching these students. And so this gives you an opportunity to be able to step straight into that environment, know what we're doing, where we're going, and obviously then come back in later in the program as well. So first and foremost, at Illuminate Education, we believe every young person has the potential to be a confident, creative, and capable young person. And so we talk a lot about the skill development that goes through this. And we group these skills in 4 areas. And these are 4 areas that you'll definitely see coming up a lot throughout the program and how you can support students. So we talk about communication, understanding, solving problems, and working smart. And communication is all about speaking, writing, and presentation skills to be persuasive and convey information. Understanding is about critical thinking and pulling apart information, inquiry, and those research skills to be able to go deeper. But also digital and financial literacy, being able to get the most out of digital technology to convey information, and also financial literacy to be able to understand and convey that information. Solving problems, creativity, and looking at new ways of doing things. Actually solving the problem itself, there's a lot in that skill itself. But then also reflection and actually being able to innovate through refining and thinking of new ways to do it. And then work smart. So that's about collaboration and working very closely with others and working together. Being organized and being able to manage your time and being prepared. And then perseverance, being able to push through when the challenges are there or be able to bounce back and keep the team on track. So that's our sort of 4 key skill areas. And we'll be definitely talking a lot about it. And I encourage you, as you're talking to teams, you might be reflecting on some of those things that they've been developing, or maybe sort of reminding them on some of the areas they can grow in across the challenge. Now, we are talking a lot about entrepreneurship and starting new ideas, and our definition of an entrepreneur might be a little bit different. So I think it's really important up front to say what our definition is. And we look at there's 3 things that are in common for entrepreneurs from our perspective. They are self-confident, they are self-motivated, and they are resilient. So they're self-confident. They know what their strengths are. They know what they can go and make an impact in. They've actually got a little bit of belief in themselves as well to do that. But then they're self-motivated. So they don't need someone else to tell them, go and do this. They go out and they make the impact themselves. They've got that drive from within. And then resilient. So they can actually handle a challenge when it comes along. Instead of sort of being knocked down, they'll bounce back. And that for me is critical, and for us as Illuminate Education is critical for all entrepreneurs, that they are self-confident, they are self-motivated, and they are resilient. Whether they start a new idea, change something in the community, or make an impact in an organization, they are all critical to entrepreneurs. And I guess the final element is we use Daniel Pink's Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, as a book. It's fantastic around team engagement. And there's 3 core things that Daniel talks about in the book that we use to create an engaging learning environment. And those 3 things are mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Mastery is all about knowing that you want to get better at skills and clearly being supported to do that. And so we'll always at the front of our presentations have a learning intention. What are we aiming to do? And so students know what skills that we're actually focused on mastering. And I'm sure as they go through the program, they'll start going, I want to get better at this as well. Autonomy, actually giving people the opportunity to do it their way. And so we'll give scaffolds and frameworks, but students have to step up and actually use them and use them the way they think it is best. And so we give a lot of time for teams to collaborate and work together. And part of that is the autonomy for them to work out how they can work best. Sometimes they don't get it right, but they will, through that reflection and refining, they'll find ways to do it and believe in themselves to do it. And the final one is purpose. So purpose is all about knowing that what you're doing matters. And so not only with the challenge theme we've given the students, they've come up with the solution and the focus area they want to solve it around. So that's something that's from within them. They've actually seen that purpose. They want to make that impact, but also the purpose in the greater business space as well. And so when we start talking about financials, why it's critical to prove your idea and make it work, there's actually purpose to that as well. And that's really, really key with all the things that we do in the program. So that's some of the underpinnings. And then as we sort of step through, I want to go through a bit of expectations and some guidelines on how you can help us through the program and get a bit of an understanding of what we've told the students. and also some ways for you to actually get the most out of the program. So foundations done, let's move on to some expectations. So we encourage students to attend all sessions on time. Sometimes we do use multiple classrooms across the school, but there are times that we need all the students together. We rarely use optional sessions or optional presentations. Facilitators will give further information if that is something that students are allowed to do. But otherwise, all those sessions, every single person needs to attend them on time so that we can get started promptly. The student schedule doesn't have end times in it. We keep our presentations brief. We don't go on for too long so they can get plenty of time to work, but you'll see in the team binder that students have throughout the program, it only has the start of sessions. But the teacher binder that you've been provided with as a school actually has the start time of the presentation and the start time when we expect that's going to be wrapping up and they get back into teamwork. And then you'll have a guide there of what they should be working on in that time. We don't give as much detail to the students for that autonomy reason, but you'll obviously have that to guide the environment. Students would obviously have their normal recess and lunch breaks as the bells go. When the bell goes, we know that we can't stop them in that way, so they do have those breaks, and so just be aware of that. On Friday, we get all the students to come back together for their final presentations. They spend the whole time throughout the week working in their teams and often not seeing too much of what else is happening across the whole group. They'll just see the people who are working in their room, and Friday's a great showpiece day. So if you are scheduled to be part of the Friday program, you'll see a very different type of program. There'll be lots of presentations, lots of quick tasks, and lots of celebration and reflection for the students. There's also an awards ceremony on Friday that we encourage you, if you can be there, to make it along, and also encourage students to invite their parents and invite other staff members to come and see the fantastic work that has been done throughout the program. Now, we're pretty strict around our deadlines. If something is handed in or submitted or presented a minute late, it's a 0 mark from our perspective. We want students to be really good at time management and organisation skills. Now, we've got some deadlines that are after school. That's an encouragement for students to think, how can I get that in early? Yes, it says 4 o'clock. I understand that. We're not saying you have to stay at school till 4 o'clock. Can you hand it in early? Can you actually be prepared and actually knock that off early? We do have a couple of tight deadlines at the start of the challenge, and that is for students to experience those quick deadlines, to reflect, to refine. So when they hit those bigger tasks towards the end of the week, where we do have to email work to judges all across Australia, we want to make sure we get those out on time, and students need to hand their work in on time. Now, we do know that there'll be other things happening around the school, and so we do want to minimise the interaction students have, but some of them will want to go and get resources from other places, the art department or something else as well, and that's going to be something that you'll have to use at your discretion. I'm sure that having every single team member going down to those spaces is just going to be chaotic, but just be aware that if students are asking to go and do these things, I encourage you to find a way that they can be supported to do that within reason, but I'll let them make those calls on how they can use the resources they have. The last point I have on my expectations is always around behaviour management. Please don't just think because the challenge is here that we're sort of just throwing all those things out. They are still students of the school. They are still on school grounds completing the program. And so those behaviour expectations would be the same. We're probably going to treat them a little bit differently. They're going to be a little bit uncomfortable earlier in the challenge as facilitators, as a facilitation group, always get called by our first names and run the program not according to normal lessons, but different structures. And so students will be a little bit uncomfortable with that. But then when they're in their groups, they're going to be talking a lot more. It's going to be a little bit noisier. So it's just being aware of some of the differences in our environment. But students that are going over the top and doing things that are just not on, obviously, please, our facilitators will call some things out, but as staff, please support in that environment. Now, in terms of resources, all the teams have a team binder that they'll be working through that has scaffolded resources for them and some tips and some guides they can use. We encourage them to not lose it and put all of their work in it so they can be organised with that one folder. You have what we call the teacher binder, which has a bit more detail around the schedule itself so that you can see what they should be doing in each of the sessions and what tasks they should be focused on. So if you are wandering around tables, keep that with you. Don't show the students that because they should actually be setting their own tasks and agenda, but that's a really great way for you to know what they are actually working on. We have also the team resource guide, so teamresourceguide.com.au. There are templates, there are rubrics, there are all the assessment guidelines are there, and how students submit their work electronically. So if you go up to someone and they say, oh, we don't understand what's going on in our financials, have you looked at the team resource guide? Let's go have a look at it together so they can actually understand the resource that is there. There is lots of stuff there. It used to be an 85-page booklet, now turned into a website, so students can really easily access it. So that's sitting there, and I encourage you to recommend students to go to it. But then also us as facilitators, our whole facilitation team is there to support not just the students, but also to help you out as staff. So if you've got questions you want to ask, please ask us. We're here to help. We're here to help students through the program, and encourage you to, don't just sort of, think that you can answer the questions. If it's something that you're not sure about, ask us. We want to help you out with that. The final point I really want to get into is, I guess, where you can really help the students in the challenge. It is a bit of a different environment, and so there are just some different things to be aware of. Obviously, a vital support role, duty of care in the rooms, making sure teams stay on track and helping them out through the process. But more than that, I encourage you to look at how you can mentor the students and actually ask them questions and support their development throughout the program. And by asking questions, we're not sort of asking staff to come in and go, wait a minute, what are you meant to be doing? Let's write it up on the board and build those lists out. We want the students to actually set that agenda for themselves. And you might just ask them questions. Where are you up to with this? How are you going on here? Are you going to be prepared for this deadline? And then the students construct the knowledge themselves and come up with the answers. And that's a big part of our environment. We want the students to take responsibility for their learning, and asking those questions can help guide them on certain ways and just checking in on how they're going. Now, if you're involved earlier in the week, we do have our team leader elections that we do sort of towards the afternoon of day one, and we start introducing the teamwork and collaboration skills. Before that, we haven't started to talk about leadership, and we haven't started talking about people guiding teams throughout the program. And so if you are involved earlier, you will probably have a bit more of a role in actually getting some teams going, sitting down, having discussions with them to get them on track. Yes, there'll be those natural leaders on some tables who will just step up and do it, but there'll be other teams that need that support. Us as facilitators will be doing that, and it's just something to be aware of, because once they get their team leaders, they've then empowered someone on their table to basically take control of their team and to start leading them. And that's then when you step back and you find out what the leader has said. Who's your team leader on your table? What have they actually set for you to do? Then you can actually empower that leader through that. And with that, then you can actually support the leader. Sometimes the team leaders aren't who you would have picked as leaders. The students have voted for some interesting people in the past, and I'm sure they will in your program as well. But with that, I encourage you to look at how you can support the leader to grow and to be strengthened throughout the experience as well. And in that, if the team's starting to fracture or fall apart or just starting to not be on track, I encourage you to have a quick word with the leader individually, have a chat to them, support them with some strategies so that then they can go back in to that conversation and keep everything on track. Often we sometimes see facilitators and staff members, they'll sit down on the table and kind of get everybody on track and give everyone a task and actually basically take that leadership responsibility away. There is a point in time for that. I completely understand that. But first and foremost, empower that team leader to be stronger in that. They might not be aware of something, and you can actually help them with that. Now, if you've got a great network of business people or other connections that could help the teams out, don't hold back on connecting with them. Don't just sit there and go, I have these connections, but the teacher in the next room doesn't. That's how it works. Networks matter. Who you know matters. And so if you do have colleagues that you think or people in your network that could support the students, don't be afraid to connect them. That's your network. Obviously, if I came up and asked you those questions, you might connect me as well. And so I encourage you to not be afraid from that. And that might help the students in their learning as well. Reflection. You might be later in the afternoon or towards the end of a session before a break, and you've got a bit of a chance to ask some reflection questions. You've seen the skills that we're focused on. You know where they're going in this sort of process throughout the challenge. You might want to ask them some questions about what's working really well in their teams. What can they improve in their teams? And actually help them reflect, innovate, and be stronger and refreshed for the next session or the next day. In terms of, yes, they're going to be doing a lot of stuff around organising their teams and managing their own time. I'm sure along the way, you have picked up some great strategies for keeping teams on track, for setting your own agendas, for all those types of things the students are going to do authentically in this program. If you've got some great strategies, don't be afraid to share them. This is a time for the students to find out how they can do some of these things and take control of it in a way they can do it. So don't hold back from promoting great strategies that you have. Now, Some teams may need some help because they might be falling a little bit behind or just struggling in certain areas. We really don't want that to be a place where a teacher comes in and sits down and stays with the team and guides the team throughout the week. We really want, in the first instance, the team to step up and to actually take control of their own learning in this way. And so in this, we encourage you to push them along. You might ask them some questions. Who's actually meant to be working on this at the moment? Are you going to be ready for the deadline? Have you thought about breaking this task down? And push them with some of the thinking. But if you came in and led them through the process, they'll just sit back and let you guide them through that process. And that's not what we want students to do in the first instance. So if you can push them with some of your questions, go for it. If you can help them jump ahead and ask them some sort of tough questions in that way so they can answer them and own up to where they're at, that's a really great way. But I have been involved in programs before, for example, like this, where teachers have come in, written everything on the whiteboard. You're doing this until this time, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do this, and the student just kind of goes through the motions and doesn't take any responsibility for their learning. That's not what we want to create in this program. The last point that I actually have for this section and for the entire video is actually just to also enjoy the experience. Students will be working in different ways throughout the program, and you'll see that shift from day one through to the end of the week. It will change. Students might be a little bit uncomfortable at the start, but as they start to norm to how this works and working in teams, they start to take a bit of ownership and they might come out of their shell a little bit in that process. So I encourage you to not just sort of look at how do you support the learning and keep students on track, but also look at how you can enjoy the experience and see those moments and reflect and have a look at what they're doing and how students are taking control of their own learning, because it's such a rewarding experience when we see those students that step up, that do something different. They've learnt so much through the program, not only the knowledge, but really importantly, the skills that they can use not only in further study, but also into the rest of their lives. And so it's from this point that we are so excited to bring the program into your school and cannot wait as a team of facilitators from Illuminate Education to deliver this and meet you all in person.